Welcome to the Project Management Happy Hour. Our aim is to share frank and honest discussion about real-world issues in project management, but do it in a way that's not too dry, though it might get a bit salty sometimes.
Top Shelf Replay. How do you start a hard conversation?
"17 years ago, a colleague I could not stand told me, you should read Crucial Conversations. And the infuriating thing was, she was right."
This is how this book changed my life. I went from fearing stressful conversations to embracing them with confidence.
Welcome to Top Shelf Replay. It is time for us to revisit an episode that was so good and one of my favorites that it deserves to be talked about twice.
We've been doing this podcast for 8 years, and we reference our earlier episodes all the time. We originally aired Crucial Conversations Part 1. Oh man, it just got crucial on July 22nd, 2018.
The strategies in this book changed how I run projects. I've built better relationships. I have made better decisions. I've shown up with more executive presence, and I've built more trust and credibility and been promoted more often ever since I've implemented talking about tough things, leveraging these strategies.
Honestly, for project managers, this is the most important book you can read. Don't read the PMBOK, read this book.
That is like the best review we could give this. So we're going to play this episode for you as it originally aired. And at the end of the episode, we're going to come back and talk about how things have changed since then. We're going to have new examples of conversations that we've talked through, double down on what we've learned in the 8 years since we first talked about this with you all. And we zero in on how to keep conversations within the context of the conversation to make you come across as a strategic expert.
So you've been talking about this book for like half of our episodes. So can you just back up a little bit and give myself and our listeners just some background on what is this book about?
I would love to. So Crucial Conversations is written by a group called VitalSmarts. In the same way that like there's books written by the Harvard Business Review, these books are written by the VitalSmarts team. It's a group of people who put decades of research into effective leadership strategies, and I have read basically all their stuff. I'm like fangirling over these nerds.
Aren't you?
And because I'm a fangirl, I recommend you read all of their work, you, the audience. There will be more than one podcast on this because there's a lot of content, and I'm actually planning on talking about both Crucial Conversations and another book they wrote, Confrontations, because they're very similar strategies. I think they have, this is the second time I've used the word synergy this week, but I do think they have good synergy. So this will probably take a couple podcasts to get through, and I can't take credit for it. You know, I really recommend you buy their book. I've attended some of their trainings. It's just it's the decades of research go into this, and it's really amazing.
All right. Well, that sounds pretty cool.
What I want to convince you of is that with practice, you will be able to talk to anyone about anything and maintain a good working relationship or partnership, or dare I say, improve it. This method has been researched by a team of at least 6 people against hundreds of people, and it's a proven way to communicate. Again, I recommend you get their stuff. But the magic of this method is dialogue. And I want to introduce this word, dialogue, because the whole goal of Crucial Conversations is to stay in dialogue, to be able to keep a conversation going. So being able to maintain dialogue is the goal of this work. And we'll begin today discussing what crucial conversations are.
How do you actually define what is a crucial conversation?
There's a definition, and it goes like this. A conversation turns crucial when the following conditions are met. Number 1, opinions vary. Number 2, stakes are high. And number 3, emotions run strong. Kim, have you ever been in a conversation with those conditions?
You mean this morning? It feels like almost every work conversation has at least one of those 3.
Yes, I definitely agree. But the thing about it is all 3 must be present for a conversation to be crucial. Other conversations can just be, we're having a difference of opinion, but the stakes aren't high, or, we're not emotional about it. The stakes can be high, but everybody agrees, right? Emotions run strong, but overall we're working on the same problem, we agree on the same path. It's when these three conditions, this trifecta, comes together of differing opinions, high stakes, big emotions, that a conversation is crucial.
Yeah, I've certainly had a lot of that. But when it happens, sometimes you can identify it better than others, sometimes too late maybe, but certainly that's when you've got to get it right, right?
Yeah. And I think if you're not sure if a conversation is crucial, you might be able to identify it by the fact that it's just a conversation that you think you can't have. You might even try and avoid a conversation like this because you're so afraid of the outcome, because these types of conversations have a huge impact on the quality of your life. So some examples of conversations that are crucial: a convo with your boss about a promotion, a convo with a close friend about a behavior that upset you, a convo with your partner about not feeling supported, a convo with a stakeholder that won't pony up and commit and has been dragging the team around for weeks. It's like all those conversations and addressing those are crucial conversations.
Right. And when you're in those situations, you can feel like you've only got two options. You can say how you feel and risk destruction or loss of the thing you're worried about, or you can just keep your mouth shut and be pissed off.
Yes, that is what the VitalSmarts team calls the fool's choice.
Well, I'm a fool.
But I mean, it's common, right? Either I tell my boss, my partner, my friend how I feel and lose my job or relationship, or I keep my mouth shut and suffer, but I keep my job or relationship. This is an important thing to know that we do as humans,
Yeah.
right? But the fool's choice comes up over and over again as we discuss how to address it. But identifying that there is, like, if you feel like, gosh, I've got one of these two things, I can either talk or suffer. You've probably hit a crucial conversation. You are staring at a fool's choice. And what I take away about what the book has to say about the fool's choice is that the best communicators get curious about other options. A lot of times, due to fear and scarcity mindset, we can see this as a discussion of a pie. If I want 6 slices of an 8-slice pie and I see another person I love or respect or has power over me and they want 6 slices, then it seems like you're at an impasse.
I like pie.
My opinion is that people who can identify these moments and get curious instead of getting fearful are the best problem solvers, communicators, and leaders. I will steal a term from my hero, Brene Brown, and say that these folks get curious about what's going on. She has a whole thing about people who want to have wholesome relationships. They get curious. So they see a challenging situation and they get curious. So you get curious about what's going on and open yourself to the possibility of discussion more than an either or. And I also read recently a great piece on Facebook by David Honig, who I think is an NPR correspondent, but he talked about negotiations, and I really liked the example he used to take it back to pie. Think of it not as a single pie to be divided by 2 hungry people, but as a baker and a caterer negotiating over how many pies will be baked and at what prices and the nature of their ongoing relationship after this one gig is over.
This reminds me a lot of our show on Getting to Yes, where we should be looking for options to address more core interests and coming up with creative solutions rather than positions. Is that a similar idea that they have in crucial conversations?
Very much so. And I think the big difference between the two is that crucial conversations may not necessarily be a negotiation. It can be something where you're bringing up how you feel, so it doesn't feel like a negotiation. But other than that, that's exactly what I'm saying, or they're saying, or what we're saying. But yes, it's a very similar approach.
Cool.
And one last note on identifying if a conversation is crucial. Just a reminder, those 3 things are: 1, opinions vary; 2, the stakes are high; and 3, emotions run strong. But if you're having trouble identifying that those 3 factors are in place, or that you're like, I don't want to avoid that conversation, you don't have a thing. Something that you can do to identify if a conversation is crucial is you can realize what's going on in your body. Some folks, myself included, can be stupid about emotions. Took me a long time to realize I had feelings, so I didn't realize they were running strong. So the VitalSmarts team recommends noticing your body's physical cues to clue you in that you might be stressed out. I know for me personally, there's times when what happens for me is my chest gets tight and I feel like I'm being smothered, and I literally feel like I'm shrinking and becoming smaller. And even though I may not know exactly what emotions I'm feeling or what I actually think the stakes are, I know the conversation is crucial for me. It might not be crucial for other people in the room, but for me, I've identified that the stakes are high. I definitely have a different opinion, and I'm feeling so emotionally strong that I'm literally think I'm shrinking myself. So if you can't identify through those other things, use your body.
Yeah, I know when I get a no, sometimes I can sense my breathing. Like I have a hard time breathing, or
Hmm.
my rate of breathing goes up, or I can feel my heart rate shoot up. When it's like the fight or flight.
Yeah,
I guess that's what it is, right? When
it
you're in
is.
that crucial situation, you're ready to fight them, or you're ready to just to duck and run.
Yeah. And the book really goes into that in detail. They took a lot of time to talk about how our human brains are wired, how we're like just, we're like fight or flight lizards, right? Like, even though we've come so far, we're still that. So the book really goes into more of the psychology and like literal, like adrenaline happens. And then whatever your natural instinct is takes over, screaming or running away. So they cover that exactly in the book. But so again, one more plug for the book here. But yeah, that's identifying a conversation is crucial.
All right, so I'm sitting in my conference room with my project team, and the conversation just got crucial. And I can tell this because I'm breathing and my heart rate's going up. I'm starting to sweat. What do I do now?
So there's one more term I want to introduce that will be recurring called the shared pool of meaning.
That sounds fancy.
and cheesy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cheesy names in here, but everything is a good point. They're so great. I love them. Fangirling, it's happening again. So the shared pool of meaning is the shared understanding everyone has in a conversation. So, for example, if we start with just myself making a decision, just Kate, I have all the meaning. I have all the meanings ever made, I have them. I know everything in my head about what I want out of the decision. I know what it'll cost me, and I don't even know what the consequences of my decision are. If we add just one more person to the decision, i.e. Kim, then we now need to create a shared pool of meaning for a decision that we need to make together. Because Kim has his own set of meaning, what he wants, what it costs him, and what the consequences are for him. In order for us to make a decision that works for both of us, the two of us have to add enough information to this shared pool of meaning. And this is really important because I'm sure all of our listeners have been in a conversation where like you've been talking in circles for forever, and then suddenly you go, wait, when you say dancing, did you mean like us, or did you mean the ball? And they clarify, no, I meant this. And then the whole conversation gets easier. That's a pretty verbatim example of the shared pool of meaning. But when a conversation is crucial because we get that fight or flight reflex coming in either of us, people get defensive and don't want to put information into that shared pool of meaning. So we're bringing up the shared pool of meaning to know the goal is to stay in dialogue and enrich the shared pool of meaning. But everything we're going to learn is how to get people to open up and continue to put information into that shared pool of meaning, to get all the parties to bring their information to the shared pool and make a collective decision together.
Yeah, that's another point that's similar to getting to yes. And they talked about really focusing on interests, which I think is, that's like what you just said is a little more succinct, is really, really understanding, what's at stake or what's going on.
Yeah, and we'll get more into it as we go. But just to know for now that the shared pool of meaning and the fool's choice will keep coming back as we talk about going through a crucial conversation.
All right. So I'm sitting in my pool of sweat in my conference room, and we're working on our shared pool of meaning. Are we ready to have our conversation now?
Yes. And the first step is to start with heart.
Oh.
Whose heart, you might say? Your heart. I told you it's cheesy, but I love it. So, Kim, if I were to say something to you like, hey, why did you do that? What do you think a common response would be to that statement?
It's not my fault.
Yes, that's normal. That's what people do. But it doesn't lead to good dialogue. A couple other examples of when folks say things, and I'd like to rotate here with you, Kim, could be somebody being like, that's not what I asked for.
Oh, so you mean like, why isn't it done kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or I told you to do it this way.
Or like, what is your problem?
Yeah. What are you doing?
I like that one. Those prompts make you defensive immediately, even if it's something simple like you sitting having a coffee and somebody says, what are you doing? Like, I'm having coffee.
Right? And if those things are in regards to something that you've put a lot of work into, like I just delivered my beautiful baby, right? Whatever that is in terms of a project, right? Like I just gave you a website or a wedding invitation I worked on or whatever. And then you, why isn't this done? That conversation got crucial. But if we're starting with heart, Going back to what we said earlier, the best folks in this situation are going to get curious about a statement or question like that. But the foundation for that curiosity, and I'm going to get personal for a second, is that you start with heart. And I interpret this to mean a few things. And the first one is your self-esteem is high enough that you don't take this as a personal attack. This book definitely changed my career life, but having spent a lot of time in therapy working on my personal esteem, it's made my ability to not take things at work personally just skyrocket. I'm like, oh, work is fine. I can handle all this. Hooray. And it makes me available for hard conversations without falling into some traps like, it's not my fault, or I tried my best and she's not happy, or I messed it up and it's all my fault. Having that good foundational base for yourself and your esteem and self-worth will make all these conversations easier. So some folks are like, but I can't because it's not my fault. I'm like, go to therapy and then you'll be able to have these conversations. So that's my piece on therapy, because that's their just outside of work, good foundation. But number two, now that we know that we're not worthless, even if someone has a problem, we can acknowledge that the only thing we can control is ourselves. So yes, if a difficult customer comes at you with any of those statements, some amount of this is your fault and we need to own it. Probably not all of it, right? But you don't have to own the whole problem, but we can start with what we own and we can start there compassionately. And yes, I think this means looking at problems, not people.
That's really true. I know we're kind of getting a little deep here, but
that's the point, to get deep.
Well, it's working. Yeah, that comment you make about the only thing you can control is yourself, that resonates with, I'm reading right now and I'm kind of geeking out over Stoic philosophy. I know I'm kind of going off way off track here, but it's a really interesting just way of looking at the world, and that when things happen, that they have emotional content. You add the emotional content to the situation.
Yeah. If I stay on my super geeky outside of this with Brene Brown, right? Like being able to get curious whenever somebody reaches out, because, and we'll go into this in greater detail, but those types of things are folks trying to protect themselves, right? Folks come at you and they're super angry and they can't have an adult conversation. Like those are folks that are hurting and they also need therapy. So like this is not a only we need therapy. Everybody needs therapy. But seeing all of that as their stuff, their baggage, their garbage, right? If somebody says to you, it's not done, it's like, okay, we've talked so much about project management on this podcast, right? You can get curious about like, how does this not meet the success criteria we put in place? Right? Like we definitely have some tools we've talked about for this already, but because emotions run high, the stakes are high, it's just important to remember, even in those moments, it's not about you. You can focus on what you can control, which is yourself, your project, and what you've done so far.
Similar to that, you and I know somebody named Byron, and they're a fantastic project manager. One of the things that he does that I've noticed is he changes the conversation. When the conversation is, it's not the right conversation, kind of like what we're talking about, he changes the conversation. It seems like it's really more of a mental shift than it is, the actual dialogue. And that's what this sounds like, right? Because you almost feel like you're going to go defensive and you think, well, actually, that's kind of interesting. Why would you say that? Why do you think that?
Exactly. And that shift is what we're looking to get into, right? We're looking to get into seeing conflicting statements, right? The crucial moment happens, right? The first thing you do is like, cool, how could we get curious about that? And I totally believe that you can only say that if you have good self-esteem and self-worth. But once you have those things, then you should be able to say, great, this is a problem I can address, as opposed to, all right, I'm putting up my little wall in front of myself and I'm not going to talk to you because I did it right because I did these things. And just like you said, right, like that's not going to get anywhere, right? If somebody brings to you a conflicting point of view and your first instinct is to put that wall up, fight or flight, whether that wall is like putting up a wall and walking away or putting up a wall and then like busting out all of your ammunition to like start your little war, the whole goal here is to say, okay, I'm safe because this is just a conversation. And as we go through this, you're going to have all the tools to talk through it. So bring it on. What's going on for you? I'd love to hear more about that.
Can we get a couple examples of what this actually looks like in practice?
Yes. So let's say your crucial moment is this. Someone at the company has decided to cut costs. We've all been there. Your project team is doing a whole lot on very little, but it's wearing on the team. Then, mid cost cuts and the misery that you've been in, the company decides to begin another big investment. And the budget for that project is in the millions. You have a status meeting and you remind your team of adhering to cost cutting measures because you've noticed that expense report costs are creeping up to the max budget. And then you hear, well, why do we have to scrimp if we're wasting millions on that new thing? That new thing could be a data center, a fancy printer, an office upgrade, whatever. But this is a contentious moment. And you, as the dialogue facilitator, hearing that sentence, should recognize that this conversation just got crucial.
So we know it's crucial because, number one, opinions vary.
Mm-hmm.
My team is really not happy with the situation. I guess their opinions vary from what the company wants to do.
And you're also holding that company opinion, right? Cut costs.
Yeah. And so number two was the stakes are high, right? And they are.
Mm-hmm.
We've got team morale. These guys and girls decide that they're done with this project. I mean, they could sink the project that I've been working on. So that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
And emotions are clearly running high, which is point number three, because they're giving me a hard time in a meeting about it.
Yes, exactly. And the first thing that we need to do is
start with heart.
Yes. And so we've talked a little bit about this, but the book talks about some of the initial ways that we react, and they are winning, punishing, and keeping the peace. And it's important to understand that this might be a way that you or other people may be acting. And I say that because maybe you bring something up and someone else acts this way, and you're like, oh, this is a crucial conversation because they're acting in a way that's winning or punishing. So winning here is looking at this like a challenge and deciding you're going to win, right? So a response would be, we're not wasting millions. We're investing in the company and this will pay off for everyone, which is great. You really won that fight. Looking so good. Another option for someone to respond is punishing. So let's say that I was the project manager and Kim is the one who spoke up. And I could say, oh yeah, Kim, we'll speak up again and we'll see where the budget gets cut next in headcount.
Ooh.
Right? So, but also doesn't stay in dialogue, right? Those are both, winning and punishing are both ways that just shut down that dialogue. And keeping the peace is the last option, which isn't represented in this example because this is where nobody talks about it, right? Everybody believes their personal safety is at stake. So nobody speaks up in the meeting. Nobody addresses anything. So the team gets grumpier week over week. You have the same meeting where everyone is grumpier, but no one is talking about it. And then you have another meeting where everyone is grumpy, but no one is talking about it. So keeping the peace looks like tension for days or weeks or months. So it's important to identify that maybe you have those things that you want to say on your side. Maybe you see someone else say these things so you can acknowledge the conversation is getting crucial. But it's important to know for yourself, these are things that people can do and be aware that this can happen.
Yeah, I see keeping the peace a lot in that it's, people don't want to deal with the problem. They say, oh, it's above my pay grade, or I don't know, not my problem. Our job is to do that, and they'll just sort of try to sidestep and ignore the problem and just kind of hope it goes away. And often it doesn't, it just sort of festers.
Right. And to the earlier point we made on sometimes a conversation is crucial because you're avoiding it, right? So keeping the peace is classic avoidance behavior. And it's like not even flight, right? It's like ostrich head in the ground. So good to know these things. So that's winning, punishing, and keeping the peace to be aware of in a crucial moment.
All right. So the conversation got crucial, probably because we're teetering on some point of someone getting thrown under the bus. Maybe someone might be about to say something hurtful or maybe make a rash decision. So something bad could happen here. So what is the right way forward?
You start with what you really want. And you think about that in a couple different ways. Number one, what do I want for myself? Number two, what do I want for others? And number three, what do I want for the relationship? So you think about those three things and what you really want, and then think, how would I behave if I really wanted those results? So I like to take this back to personal relationships because I think they feel the most impossible, right? Like being married is the most vulnerable thing I've ever done. I tell people all the time, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. So I like to use a personal relationship example here. Let's say that there's an intimacy gap with your partner in your relationship and you want to address it with your partner. You want more intimate time together. Maybe they don't want to spend as much intimate time together. It's just not, how their drive works. So you want you and your partner to enjoy your time together and you want to stay together, right? Like thinking about what you really want. Whenever you're spending intimate time together, you want that to feel good for everyone. You want to be able to spend that time together and you want to keep your relationship. And if you really want those things, how would I behave if I really wanted those things, right? You can't pout or walk around angry or drop weird hints that there's an intimacy gap, right? Like if what you want is nice time together, then you wouldn't walk around the house like, oh, gosh, this couch is so lonely with one person, right? That behavior does not match. I want to spend intimate time with you that's going to be a positive experience for everyone. That behavior is, I'm throwing a tantrum, pay attention to me, right? So it's important to think about in any moment to go back to what do I really want and how would I behave if I really wanted those things?
I mean, if I can convert it into dad speak, it almost sounds like conversations I've had with my kids where it's like, grow up and get over yourself.
Yes. But that's, again, we're starting with that with ourselves, right? Like starting with your own heart is where you have to get.
I'm saying that to yourself. Like you got to tell yourself, I got to grow up and get over myself and just get on with it.
Yep, exactly. And the goal of all this reflection is to refuse the fool's choice, right? Because remember, the fool's choice is there's only this or that. But once we're clear on what we want, we add more options to the conversation, right? We add more options to the shared pool of meeting. So in addition to clarifying what you do want, it can be helpful to clarify what you don't want. The book suggests that you think of what you are afraid will happen to you if you back away from your current strategy of trying to win or stay safe. In my example, I specifically don't want to have a useless and heated conversation that creates bad feelings with my partner and doesn't lead to change. So the VitalSmarts team recommends you communicate all of this through don't do statements. I love a good don't do statement. They are the best thing. This looks for a solution that asks, how can I have a candid conversation about what I really want and avoid creating what I don't want? So first you can say the don't. So in an intimacy conversation where there's two different drives between partners and probably the higher drive person is starting this conversation, I would start with, I don't want to ask you to be intimate with me on a schedule that doesn't work for you or in a way that doesn't feel good for you. But I do want to figure out a way for us to look at intimacy in a broader way, maybe expand the definition of intimate so that we can have a time together that feels good for both of us and feels like a better way for us to spend our intimate time together.
So if we can back up real quick. And so the don't one more time is, how can I have a candid conversation about what I really want or whatever that topic is and avoid creating the problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how can I have a candid conversation about why a resource manager wants to take my people off my team and avoid creating an internal war between the PMO and that department?
Yeah, that's really good. So that's what you're looking for. And then what would your don't do statement be there? Because the first thing would be clarifying what you don't want to happen with that person that you'd be talking to.
So don't do would be what I don't want to do to the resource manager to piss them off?
No, it would be the resource war, right? If you don't want the resource war, that's what you would say.
Oh, yes.
So if I was the resource manager, you would tell me that you don't want to create a resource war. So, and what you really want is, what do you really want out of the situation? You want to keep your resources or what do you really want?
So I've got a project I've got to get done and I need these resources to get it done on time and on budget.
Okay, so this is really great because this is an example of there's 8 slices of pie and you need 6 and she needs 6, right? So if we go back to the interests, just in the same way we've gone back to interest in getting to yes, in identifying what you really want for yourself, for others, and for the relationship. So what do you want for yourself here?
I want those resources to stay on my project.
What do you want for other people?
As far as my project stakeholders or?
So how I would think about this in my taking a step back brain is I would think, okay, there's resource contention. What I really want is to get the project done. And I want it to be done on time and on budget. Those are my 2 biggest things. What I want for other people, I want to have a positive experience. I don't want to have to spend 8 weeks fighting about resources. And what I want is that they are able to do the job without having to work 2 different things, right? Like what I want for others is that it's really clear whose roles and responsibilities there are, and it's clear how we're going to resource the project. I want it to be clear, simple, easy. That's what I want for others. And in terms of the relationship between me and this resource manager, this is going to be an ongoing relationship, right? This isn't a one and done. You're going to have to go back and see her over and over again to talk about this in the future.
Right.
So probably you want to at least have a civil working relationship, maybe even try to improve it because of how often you'll be working together, right?
I really don't want to burn that bridge.
Right, exactly. Those are what you really want, right? So, and I hear the on time, on budget. So we'll have to see how what other options we can come up from that. But knowing that that's what we want, how we would behave is we would probably approach this in a way that's like, okay, it seems like we're having a hard time being able to resource my project. And probably she's up against a hard time, right? If she's trying to steal resources from you, she probably is super slammed with other projects. She probably has competing things going on for her. So, and this is all you starting with heart, right? You're like, I can understand she's having a hard time. I've got things I'm trying to get done. So we're going to have a conversation about it. So already we've stepped back from personal attacks between the two folks, right? This isn't you saying, well, you just steal my resources, and her saying, well, don't ask for so many, right? Now already we're looking at this conversation more like, okay, there's clearly there's contention here, and we have to figure out a way that it works for everyone involved. So when you go to her, what I would say is approach her and say, hey, I'd like to talk about resourcing for my project. And what I don't want to do is sit here and demand a whole bunch of things and leave really grumpy, because what I really want, what I do want, is to figure out a way to resource my project in a way that I can be confident my resources are available for me, and understand, what you're up against on your side, so that we can work together to figure out how to keep these resources here and communicate if there's other constraints that come up, so that the two of us can stop beating each other over the head each week trying to make sure the resources stay on my project.
Okay, so I think I get it. So the do and don't do statements, they're getting meta. So we want to step out of our conversation and say, big picture, what do I want to have happen and what I don't want to have happen in that interaction? I gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah. Don't do statements are really great. They're also excellent apologies. The book gives a really great example where a team has worked really hard to be ready to meet like a C-level or a VP of the company. And their manager is like, promises the team he's going to bring down this high-level person to come and meet the team. And like they've put together some sort of like elaborate display. Like they put a lot of work into preparing to tell this person, this is what we do, meet us. But what happens in the moment for this manager is that this C-level woman, she says, I'm going to cut, I forget what it was, but I'm going to either cut the budget from your project, or I'm going to take something away, or we're going to outsource something. Basically, for him, she says something that's like, oh crap, I have to address this. And I need to find a way where this disastrous plan she's proposed does not happen. So the hour that he was supposed to spend bringing her down and meeting his team, he spends like basically talking her out of whatever crazy plan she has. Because we all know how to respond to stupid executive asks, right? So he spends that hour with her, but there's no communication to the team because he's, in the moment trying to work through this problem that would have hurt his team long-term, right? So he definitely made the right choice, but in making that choice, he's also created hurt feelings on his team. So he leaves the conversation he's had with her, and like, not only did he prevent the bad thing from happening, they came out with an overall better solution. So he's actually feeling pretty good until he walks by this stand like that his team is set up at like this like conference day or whatever. And his team, of course, you can imagine, is like staring steely-eyed, fuming, like, where have you been? And where is she? Right? Because there's been no communication to them. So, oh goodness, he could try to win or punish them, right? Like, well, you should have checked in, or I just did something that's really great for us, so don't give me that attitude right now. It's stressful times, right? That could be a way he could choose to respond. Or he could take a moment to look at this as a crucial moment and say, start with heart. I hurt these people's feelings because I didn't bring this person they've really wanted to meet. So you can use a don't do statement to clarify what's going on here. So you can say, I don't want you guys to think that I don't appreciate this or that you haven't done really great work here today. I'm so sorry. This is what happened with the C-level woman on what he had to resolve, and say, I apologize. It was critical for me to address that, but it wasn't okay that I didn't let you guys know what was happening. So I do apologize for wasting that hour, but it was crucial that I did that work. So I don't want you guys to think that I didn't think of this as a priority, because I do. What I do want to do is figure out how to have her come see you guys tomorrow. I know that she's going to be on site tomorrow as well. And based off of what happened, I think I'll be able to negotiate her spending an hour with you guys tomorrow. So you can use that don't do as part of an apology whenever you're working through hurt feelings or miscommunications or things like that.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to your openness when you're able to have that conversation. And like you said, it's a little bit of courage to be able to say, look, I don't want to start a war between the PMO and resource management team. I'm just want to make sure that my project doesn't fail and, we don't overwork everybody. That's really good.
And I think a key moment in there too, as well, is understanding, and it took me a long time because I have been a selfish brat for most of my life, but it took me a long time to understand, like, other people are just trying to do their job, right? Like, if like this woman who's there are some people, and we'll get to this in confrontations, who can just be a pain, and they're just like there to sit in their high castle and be a pain in the butt. But most people that you work with are just trying to do their job. So even approaching it like, hey, I've noticed that there's a lot of contention around getting resources. I have to put in a resource request in 6 weeks in advance. And if I miss that moment, then I can't get any resources. This is really tough because for me, I have, 3 weeks of notice whenever I need to get started. So clearly we've already set ourselves up in an impossible situation because I could never get the resource request in 6 weeks ahead of time. So, I don't want to come here and tell you to just change your process from my point of view, but I do want to work out how can we get to a reasonable solution for our teams working together. Like just taking a moment to take a step back and say, I acknowledge that there's an absentee piece of information for me, but I want to know what that is and I want to work through it, I think is a really key point of don't do statements.
That's a lot of good stuff.
I know. And this is only a third of the way through the book.
Wow. All right. Yeah, this is not a single podcast topic for sure.
Kim, this book is still my favorite book to recommend to people. When people ask me, Kate, how did you get so good at hard conversations? I'm always like, you should read Crucial Conversations. I read that book 17 years ago and I still reference it today. And I will keep referencing it for the rest of my life.
I don't even know how many times I reference it. I always say this is mandatory reading for all project managers. I think I recommend this book more than my own.
It's just so good. And it also feels like one of those books where like they did it all and it never needs to be done again. Like if you only wanted to read one book to help you get better at hard conversations, this is the book, full stop. And it's not even thick. It is a thin, easy to read book.
Yeah, it's not a big book. It's an easy read and it's a life-changing book, honestly.
It is. So in this episode, we covered a couple different things. We covered the shared pool of meaning, which honestly is one I think that I forget the most, honestly.
Yeah, I think we're used to making assumptions about what we think we know and what we think other people know or the way they believe. And that is, it's something you're going to stub your toe on and it's going to hurt you from the beginning if you don't sort that out.
Yeah. And what I've been experiencing lately has been, I think I have communicated well and that people understood. Don't you laugh at me, man who's known me for 17 years. Someone I've been podcasting with for 8 years. I think I have communicated clearly, and yet I have not. And so I think I have been understood, and I have not been understood. I just went through that in a personal relationship where I thought I'd communicated everything well, to which one of my friends told me, Kate, they don't know that you're all bite, no bark. And I was like, what a scathing review of like me not communicating enough, which is why like, if you don't know, teach. It's like, yeah, I have to constantly keep reteaching myself how to communicate with other people and how to be clear and how to make sure we've understood each other. So the shared pool of meaning for me lately has been about, have I really communicated what I mean into the pool of meaning, which is hard. I thought I was clear. I'm not.
It is. And I have my malfunction in this area is I just assume you know what I mean.
Right. We all do.
Of course, you understand what I said very clearly, and you certainly understand what that meant. And you certainly would not misunderstand. And it's an ongoing exercise in learning how to open your ears or listen to yourself or be conscious of what the other person is going to perceive.
Yeah. And I'll say for me, right, if we talk about, start with heart, which is the next big piece of this, right? It's easy for me to be like, you didn't understand me. Wah. Like, it's just really easy for me to get really upset or hurt or frustrated. And that's a normal way to feel, I think, whenever you're not understood. All human beings crave connection. All human beings desire to be understood. So it makes sense that you'd feel that way. And stepping up into, I have been misunderstood. That's okay. I can help address it is one of the biggest leadership moves you can take as a project manager.
Yeah, I think it's natural, certainly for me, to embrace the fight or flight instinct, right? When you know you're going to go into a very difficult conversation or when it starts to get really tough, is fight or flight. The stress reflex hits, your heart rate's going, you're like, you get angry, you want to leave, you want to lash out, react, whatever it is. And I really like the term of leading with heart and just saying, look, I'm going to open up a little bit. I'm not going to fight or flight. If it hurts, it hurts. But we're going to have this conversation.
I also think the thing about starting with heart is if you're able to show someone else empathy, you can get so much farther with them than if you come with fight or flight. If somebody makes you feel like they want to pick a fight with you and you choose the flight response, then a dialogue has not happened, right? You've just accepted whatever they've told you to do. If you go into a fight response, that person doubles down. But if that person wants a fight, there's something driving that, which I think that in this original episode, we really talked about very well. But I think, more recently, there are people that I've been working with who are really, things are hard right now.
Yeah.
Right. It is not easy out there right now. And it is so easy to be like, well, nobody's doing anything. Nothing's happening. Right. That's a common way to respond to like a lack of communication. It's a common way to respond to like a new way of working with somebody. And being able to say, well, they're new, or how are things going for you? Or to hold that space can actually build much stronger relationships during times like this, which has served me very well and has helped me get through much like challenging conversations, even with people like sponsors. Like, I think what I want to say here is that it's a challenging time to be a sponsor right now because of how hard everything is right now. The business landscape is constantly shifting. The market is shifting where the economy isn't doing as well. Sales are down in the world. So because of all those things, like sponsors are strapped and having a hard time. Having empathy for sponsors when you approach them to talk about things can make you much easier of a partner to work with for them because they feel like they can have a genuine conversation about what's going on rather than being told, well, I didn't get what I wanted. And as a sponsor, you're like, no one is getting what they want. Shut up. But if somebody came up to me and said, okay, things are a little wild right now. Are we still on track? Or is this still the goal that you have? I'd be like, great question. I would love to talk through that with you. So that's a really powerful way you can leverage Start with Heart in a sponsorship situation.
It is. A lot of it's listening too. And I was at a management retreat a few weeks ago, and they had a speaker. His name was Greg McKeown, and he's written a lot of books. He's a thinker. He wrote the book Essentialism and a number of others. And he actually came and spent a couple hours with us speaking, and we did some workshopping. And he shared this one quote. He quoted Carl Rogers, and he said, he called it the gold standard for communication. He said, only make your point after you've made the other person's point to their satisfaction.
That is a great way to say that.
And I think that's really important because we go in and we assume we understand the other person's point of view and we just want to speak our part. We want to speak what we have to say. But it's good to step back and say, go through the effort to listen and try to rephrase what you understand their position to be until you have it right. And they say, yes, you understand me now. I think that's a great way to start on a difficult conversation. It definitely demonstrates your effort, your willingness to meet them and to understand what they're struggling with. And when you go through that process, you will almost certainly learn that what your assumption was is probably not right.
Agreed. Yeah. But also the amount of good faith and goodwill that you get out of really letting that person know I'm investing in understanding you goes really, really far. But my favorite thing, the thing I reference the most from this book is don't do statements. When they came up in this episode, I was like, yes, don't do's. Here we go again. A don't do statement in that you're able, we covered it earlier, right? That you say, I don't mean XYZ. I do mean ABC. That framing of problems has done so much heavy lifting for me in my communication lifetime. It's so helpful.
I see the help. I've used it and it's been helpful, but I think it can go really, really wrong.
Kim, get away from me. Stop. No. How dare you? No, it's perfect. It can take no criticism. I'm ready to die on my sword.
So here's the sword. So when you are saying, I do want and I don't want, if you keep that in your shared pool of meaning, if you are saying, I don't want to, and you're saying things that you think the other person is afraid of or they're concerned about or is frustrating them, very, very useful. But the words you use matter. And when you start introducing things that aren't even part of the conversation, it becomes very disorienting and can really bring the conversation down. I bring this up because I worked with somebody between now and when we published it, and it was really interesting that they would introduce other concerns into the conversation that didn't warrant. So I'm going to give you an extreme example, right? Ready for this?
I am ready.
So imagine you got a new neighbor and they come knock on your door
Great.
and they say, "Hi, I'm your new neighbor. I want to introduce myself. I don't want you to think I'm some kind of crazy person who likes to shoot their gun in their backyard and whose dogs will come and kill your animals and that I like to set buildings on fire. I'm not like that. I just want to come over and say hi. I thought I might make you some cookies." Right. Right. You see where I'm at.
Yes. I mean, my gut instinct at that moment is you are someone who shoots guns off in your backyard and your dogs are going to kill my animals. And I forget the last bad third
I'm
thing,
going to set your house on fire. Yeah.
that you are those things. That's fair. That is fair.
That's an exaggeration, but in other contexts, it's, it can be really distracting and disorienting. You don't want to you've already got enough concerns and challenges in your current communication. You don't want to start introducing other concerns into it. So even though you're saying, well, I don't want to do this and I don't want to bankrupt you and I don't want to, I don't want you to walk away and lose your job. Like, who said anything about jobs? We don't want to introduce language or topics that really aren't pertinent or aren't part of the current conversation. And our words matter. And even though we're introducing those to say, I don't do that, I'm using those words, which is triggering the connotation in your listener's mind, which is not productive.
I think that is an excellent point. In one of the courses I teach, I talk about how to handle like tough conversations with executives, having executive presence, communicating your story, the impact of the value of your work. And there's something to the wisdom of what context is important to bring into a conversation that is hard to teach. It's something that, like, I think there's so much we can learn. Like, you and I have a ton of wisdom, right? But we also know, Kim, that if we met a brand new project manager today and we tried to be like, here are all the things you should never do, and here are all the things that you should do in this way, like that, like a first year project manager just will not grok some of the, most of the wisdom that you and I have, because it's so much of that is lived. And so to your point on what context should you bring up in a don't do statement is really wisdom based. Like in your example of the neighbor, my wisdom would tell me, don't introduce things that aren't true about yourself. It's more like, I forget why, but I needed to park in my neighbor's driveway for a little bit. There's not great street parking in my neighborhood. And so in that conversation, it would be, hey, would it be okay if we parked here for 2 days? It should only be 2 days. I don't want to impose, but if you have the space, I'd really appreciate it. I think that'd be different than, I don't want to set up shop there for forever and I won't use it whenever I feel like it. But if you could just let me do this for now, that'd be great.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like the true thing that is the context that applies to the moment is, I don't want to impose. It's true, right? If my neighbor was going to have guests, I would deal with street parking and it would be fine. It was only going to be 1 or 2 days. But if it was easy for them, and they want to be good neighbors, because I want to give my neighbor the opportunity to be a good neighbor. Plenty of neighbors want to be good neighbors, so I want to do that for them. I think if we were to take this to like a work example, right now I'm dealing with a sponsor who has a lot of wants. There's a lot of things my sponsor wants to do. Got big dreams, want to make a lot of stuff happen. Anytime we make any sort of progress on something, my sponsor's thinking, I want to be able to do this new other thing that I'd love to be able to do. And whenever I'm working with a sponsor that's got real shiny object syndrome, I'm always trying to keep the context narrow. And so to that sponsor, I would say things like, yeah, I do want to do those things that you want to do, but I don't want to do them until we have gotten the scope done for our current project that we're after. Is that something that you're comfortable with? I don't want to prevent the success of the current initiatives by adding these new initiatives that you want to add. I think it will help keep the team focused. I don't want to discourage the team from getting things done. I do want us to be able to cross the finish line, have a celebration, and then add new work. In that example, I'm keeping it context full of just what I'm trying to focus us on.
Right. And for the introverts out there, that can always feel really tough. But actually, referring back to Greg McKeown's book, which he gave us copies of, and I read Essentialism, he actually talks quite a bit about drawing borders,
Yeah.
crisp borders, and being clear about do's and don't do, will and will nots. Really actually builds respect and can help build a relationship. So don't be afraid to do it.
Yes.
Wouldn't you like some help with your crucial conversations? We can help you with that. Join our Project Management Happy Hour membership. Join our community with other brilliant project managers like you. And there's even opportunities for coaching directly from Kate and myself.
When you're a part of the community, you can leverage the other project managers and myself and Kim to get answers to the toughest questions that you got from folks who've been there just like you. Walk out of your next meeting feeling confident and getting your problems resolved. Join our membership at pmhappyhour.com/membership today.
And that's our show. Thanks for listening. If you liked our show, please leave a review and a comment on iTunes or wherever you get our podcast. Your review really does mean a lot. And if you want to check out our membership site and all of our cool content there, you can check that out at pmhappyhour.com/membership. If you want to talk to us directly about project management, PM consulting, training, or whatever, our contact info is on our website under About Your Hosts, or you can just hit us up on our Facebook site at PM Happy Hour. You'll find we're really pretty easy to get a hold of there. And that's it for today. Good luck with your projects, and we hope to catch you again at the next PM Happy Hour. Cheers.